People are going to say, Waters, you went to people's homes. I did, but there's a difference. I went to elucidate, not to intimidate. There's one guy with a microphone shows up, asks a polite question, and then leaves. It's a lot different than having a mob of angry, radical activists screaming at the top of their lungs at nighttime while the kids are home. That's different, and that's what I want to make clear right now. I might have had my collar up. That was probably the most flagrant thing I did.
Okay, so that is Jesse Waters, who seems to have at least heard the criticism that the thing that he's saying people shouldn't do, which is hound people in their personal lives, is literally how he got his start on Bill O'Reilly. Now he smooths over a few of the bumpy patches of that there was a large amount of racism baked into the people that he targeted, the questions that he asked and all that. He got in their face, he selectively edited it. It was a pathetic way to launch a career, but that's what he did. And so now he has to pretend that there is a major difference between that and what we're seeing in the protests outside of like Kavanaugh's house or whatever. But again, they're gonna undercut themselves in real time. Just as we pointed out on the show yesterday with Liz Wheeler, they wanna show footage. That's what they do. They wish that they could do 6 months of the same building on fire on repeat that they did back in 2020. The footage they have is the footage they used, and you saw it there in that clip. Did that look like a mob to you? I cannot believe that they thought that this would be a good idea, except that they know their audience is gonna look at that footage. I don't know if we can put it up again without the audio, just so people can see a little bit of that. But it's a group of people, sure. They have some signs. It's not a mob. They're not like desperately trying to like breach the barricades or anything. They have a sign. They're chanting. Considering the stakes, rights that people have had for decades and decades and decades, I think that they're being fairly reasonable at this point, yes. But what do you think? There's the footage. That's a crazed mob. That's some people. It looks like they're standing like on the other side of the street from the house. They're giving distance. I feel like this could be quite a bit more mob-like. What do you think?
It looks like your standard issue protest. I like how they just kept zooming in on like a chalk wire hanger. Like that's not the violence that you're perpetuating or that you're purporting it to be. But it reminds me of that song from Disney's from Beauty and the Beast, right? The mob song at the end where they're gonna go kill the beast, and there's a line in the song. It's very insightful. It says, we don't like what we don't understand. In fact, it scares us. And yes, I did pull that off the top of my head. But I thought that it's a very interesting line to include in a children's movie, but at the same time, any mob, any group of people who don't like you and are opposed to what you're doing can seem threatening to you, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that that's kind of part of what's happening. But on top of that, they keep talking about this issue about abortion, and they're missing the point, right? The point is not actually about abortion itself. It's about a woman's right to choose what to do with her body, right? And there's a lot of pro-choice Democrats, and I'll tentatively include myself in this demographic, but there's a lot of pro-choice Democrats who would, if given the situation, would choose not to have an abortion, right? That's still an option, right? But it's still the option. We're fighting for the option to make that choice for ourselves. And that's what they're just not reporting on that at all.
By the way, I appreciate everything you said. I also had to look up the lyrics to the song, and it is, "We don't like what we don't understand. In fact, it scares us, and this monster is mysterious at least." Just mysterious, that's it.
Yeah,
100%. And look, he will later go on that same episode of The Five to do the thing, that's really weird thing that the right does. Here is what he said. "Abortion is sacred to the left. What that means is this is a religious situation. This is a religious war to the left. Nothing means more to them than this abortion situation." Well, certainly I think a lot of people prioritize it. It's an important issue. Isn't it weird though that when the right constantly tries to make secular positions religious positions, it's like they sort of get that that's a lesser justification for believing something, or they just hate people pointing out that they believe it for purely religious reasons rather than something grounded in science or logic or something like that. And so they cannot wait to throw it back in the face of the left. Your position on climate change is a religious position. This is a sacred thing to you. It can't simply be that we believe that people deserve dignity, they deserve a level of independence and privacy, particularly when it comes to things like what happens to their own body. That can't be it. It has to be dogma. Sorry, dude. The dogma is on your side in this case, and I think people get that.
I mean, they just project. They don't know how not to project. This is literally a religious issue for them. And if you bring it up in a debate with any kind of right-wing pro-life supporter, They throw the Bible at you, which is actual religion. But then you think about it, what is a religious belief? What is religion? It's just a belief that's been codified and widely accepted by a lot of people. Jesus doesn't necessarily have to be a part of it. God doesn't necessarily have to be a part of it, right? And there's a very fine line between religions and cults, and we know that. That's not just me being hyperbolic. That's, by definition, that's what it is. So maybe it is religious in that sense that this is a very strongly held and widely held belief amongst a lot of people, not just here in the United States, but around the world. And if it's good enough for them, then it's good enough for us.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.